is sitting under Zarathustra to get his information of Zoroastrian religion. There is a question here. It is not Zarathustra, it is the one who is always the head mobbit of our religion, but he was called Zarathustra Tema, follower of Zarathustra. So it was one of them that he sat under. Pythagoras never wrote anything, do you know that? It was all his disciples and all who wrote everything, including his theorem. Anyway, so this is another misconception. So what is the misconception? Zarathustra in Gustavus' time, compared to Darius' father, and so that's why they put it around 600 or so. There are two other books which are very interesting. One is Zarathustra by Jalaluddin Ashtiani, written in Persian, translated by Mamak Nurbakhsh, and it is an amazing book. I have found about age and gathas and teachings and history and Vedas, all in this book, very well done. And he thinks that it is only half of what he wants to put on the book. So it's a very interesting thing if you have a chance to do it. A very interesting proposition by Mary Settegast. She wrote a book called When Zarathustra Spoke. According to her theory, that there was a tremendously interesting time when the human people became from hunters to agriculturists. And it was very, very sudden in the framework of time. And it happened around 6500 BC. And she thinks that from what she quotes, one who tills the land really makes Auramazda very happy. But it is in our religion always, to settle. Zarathustra always talks about agriculture and so on. So she thought that's why Zarathustra was born at that time, 6500 or so BC. Conjecture, but maybe he shares written the whole book on it. One of the most disappointing things for us is our own Ferdowsi Tusi, the great poet who really revived our culture of Peshtadian and Canaan dynasty. Unfortunately, he mistook Alexander defeating the last king of Canaan dynasty called Dara, who was the great-great-grandson of Gustavus, with the Darius III by history, who Alexander defeated as the last king of Achaemenian dynasty, of Cyrus and Darius and Xerxes and so on. What a huge mistake of them. So because of that, since 334 BC is when Alexander conquered Persia, he added 150 or so years, and people say, according to Ferdowsi, Zarathustra was born around 600 or so BC. Very big problem. In fact, he never even recognizes the whole Achaemenid dynasty in Shahnameh. You will never find Cyrus, you will never find Darius, Xerxes, nothing. He goes from Alexander straight to 10 names of Parthian kings. That's it, just the names. And then goes straight into Ardashir-Babakan, who started the Sasanian dynasty. So the whole Achaemenian and whole Ashkanian dynasty, the Parthian, which is almost 800 years, he just glossed it over. Maybe he didn't have any information. But the biggest mistake he did is Alexander defeated, the great-grandson of Gustavus. Anyway, so that is one problem we have. Now, after Alexander, who massacred, and don't tell him he's a great, okay? We call him Alexander the Accursed. And say it loud.
Accursed.
He demolished He demolished Persepolis when he was drunk, and his soldiers burned it to death. He took, or some people are saying around 3,500 donkeys, carried everything that he got in our religious scriptures and so on. So he is the accursed person, and our religion was completely into disarray. And thank God to the Parthian dynasty, who actually were there for 400 years. And it is because of the Parthian dynasty, Romans never can come east of Armenia. They defeated Romans every time. And they were so great in archery. They can shoot, going on the horse forward and shoot the person in the back with the archer. They were that good. Anyway, so the one king you should mention in Parthian dynasty called Valaksh. He was from 51 to 78 AD after Christian religion started. And he started to collect or scatter Western scriptures from all over. And then when Ardashir Babekan founded the empire, Sasanian Empire in 224 AD now, he completed the gathering of all based on his chief Mohammed Tansar. So that is the time when we started to have our scriptures together, 224 AD. There was such a misconception of our religion during that time. Not too many people were really believing in it, so he wanted to do something. So he gathered 40,000 Mohammeds and asked them to select one person, and they will stand in somehow in trance to see what is heaven and hell. And they selected the most pious person of high repute. His name was Arda. And they wrote down everything he said when he went and saw heaven and hell and so on. And Dante followed this one very well and wrote some of his famous books on this and poems. Anyway, so this vision is described in Arda Virath Nama or Name. Unfortunately, the first sentence says that Zarathustra lived 300 years before Alexander's invasion of Iran. That's the first line in the Raviratnama. What does that put Zarathustra again? 660 BC. Bundahishna, our another scripture on creation, says Zarathustra lived 258 years before the fall of Achaemenid dynasty, again 630 or so BC. Our own scriptures are confused together with Firdausi about our own prophet's age. Anyway, okay, so now we come to some other Hindu scholars. Lokmanya Tilak, very well known, very well respected scholar of Sanskrit. He used some astronomical data to say that the Rigveda is around 5000 BC. The Rabindranath Tagore, who got a Nobel Prize for his poem, Gita Anjali. What a beautiful poem that is. He was respected very well, and he has the highest regard of Zarathustra. And we will talk a little bit about that. He mentioned somewhere around 1500 BC. And then there is a book I will talk about later on. But our own Arach J.S. Taraporwala, who wrote this book, which I will talk to you about it later, Sanskrit and Avesta scholar, he says, and I quote, personally, I endorse the date given for the Vedas by Jacobi and Tilak, and think that Zarathustra was a contemporary of the earliest Vedic poets, somewhere 3000 BC. Okay, so I want to talk about that last book I didn't mention to you. It is called The Hymns of Atharvan Zarathustra by Bengali Sanskrit scholar Jatindra